Welcome to Courageous Captain's Corner. This is a podcast series that relates back to topics that we're the captain of our own ships, whether it be a personal ship or a business ship. We want to engage with you. So take a listen, give your feedback, say hi in the comments. We are pre-recording these sessions, but we're sitting live monitoring the comments. And if you have a topic that you think needs to be added to this, please feel welcome and let us know in the comments section. Enjoy the podcast. Hi, I'm Noleen from LadyBugz, but you already knew that because this is an audio live playing through my LinkedIn. Today, I want to talk about something that has got nothing but everything to do with business, but not directly to my business, but in people and in general as a whole. And this is about us not having common sense filter through into work, life, health, all of that scenario. And if you're in my generation, you've got children that are in the workforce or coming up into the workforce. My business at this point has, people that are young, and I'm finding that there are certain people that even as they're a little bit older as well, that they've had things handed to them on a golden platter, which has affected their critical thinking, in their brain. The neurology doesn't work because they don't know how to troubleshoot. Now, how this is coming up in business is, if I don't know how to do something, I pass it on to somebody else, and that person passes it on to somebody else, and that person passes it on. And so actually, no one ever gets it done. I have a thing this year to get SH1T done, not take SH1T, and actually give SH1T. So in other words, give a SH1T. So SH1T, for those who don't know, kind of look it up and you'll find out. But at the end of the day, it's about getting stuff done. It's about not taking nonsense from people, and as well as giving a damn to people around you. And this is why I'm doing this particular podcast, is about the part of giving a damn. Because at the end of the day, the people that are coming into our business that are the younger generation, they're in their 20s, early 30s, they haven't been taught the troubleshooting things that we were taught when we were younger. We weren't raised with Google. I was chatting with a client earlier, and the first computer that I worked on was when I was actually started working, or as a till point at Truewords, but that was just their system. It wasn't working on their system. You couldn't do anything else other than process sales. Then in my very first job, it was still DOS when I first started, and then Windows came in. So, yes, it's showing a little bit of age, but what it does is there was lots of things we had to remember, the commands, those kinds of things. And, we used to actually have to remember people's telephone numbers. Nowadays we can barely remember their names, let alone their telephone numbers. So, we've got mobile devices that have people's numbers on that we don't even know who they are, because they were at one point, loaded onto I know at one point LinkedIn had this functionality that could, sync all your contacts and get those people's telephone numbers onto your phone. This was before GDRP and Poppy and everything else. So it's, 15 years ago. And you would get everyone's telephone number and email address loaded onto your phone, like chop chop. So every time I've moved SIM cards or moved phones or whatever, I've gotten these, like 3.5, 4,500 contacts that I probably use 50 of them. But it's that I don't want to actually lose those contacts. But we don't remember the contact numbers. We don't even remember who the contacts were. We have to look them up again. And I think the biggest thing for me is that we're not allowing people to learn because we're putting them into the market and saying, this is what I want, but there's no checking in, there's no coaching, there's no, this is how it gets done here. There's no actual patience with the people that are coming into the work industry. And it's something that I focused on, particularly even when my kids were growing up. Now, we all know those parents, right? I'm not talking to you, and you guys, I mean, because you're listening to this podcast, you guys are amazing. You did nothing like this at all. But I had complaints from teachers as well as, parents. You would hear, oh, I sat until 1 o'clock in the morning and I needed to finish, John's report or his project. Or I'm like, you did what? So I raised my kids to, oh, you've got a project. Okay, cool. So when are you going to start it? Okay. Then they leave it to the last minute. And when it was bedtime, so, I was very strict from a rules perspective and keeping routine. Being a single mom and raising two young children is, you have to have a routine and you have to stick to it. Otherwise, madness ensues and, jail time and, further implications. But routine was key for me, which kept my sanity as well as kept my kids in check. So they knew that if they didn't have their project finished by bedtime and their project was due the following day, they would have to get up a little bit earlier to try and see if they can still finish the project. They couldn't stay up later because they had a week to plan for it, but they, diddly-daddly didn't get to it. As a result, I have a daughter that plans, her life, 17 years ahead of time. Yes, she does currently work for me now, but she's got other plans and things are moving into other directions, and but that's okay. She did something else. She did something else, and now she's working for me, and whatever that is, she's still finding who she is. But I don't, with my team and with my kids, I never did their projects. I helped them along the way and I'd give them ideas and those kinds of things, but I didn't do the actual project. Because at the end of the day, what are they learning? They're not learning, how do I troubleshoot, how to figure to make this thing move? Okay, so if you're having to build a tractor, how do I make the loader move? Okay, so let me think about it. They still had Google. We didn't even have Google, so we had to think about it like logically. And this is where, if you needing some courses and you're wanting to train up your staff and you're one of those people that direct message me, I've got some fantastic providers that I work with that can help with training how to use your brain from a systems, critical systems thinking, etc. So, from that perspective, I can help you with that. But today I'm wanting us to unpack things like, with Google at our fingertips, I did this exercise probably about 15 years ago. And this was before we had massive amounts of internet, like information overload total. This is before there was so much information on the internet that, yeah. I did it, my ex-mother-in-law would have beetroot with every meal. So she would always have beetroot in her fridge, and that was kind of part of whatever you were eating, there was beetroot. So what I did was have a curious brain by nature, which helps from a systems thinking and troubleshooting. So I want to understand what is the real problem and what are we trying to fix? Okay, so have we tried this? Have we tried that? Have we? Whereas not a lot of people do that. So what I wanted to understand was, is beetroot good for you or is beetroot bad for you? You know, I wanted to know what are the pros and the cons. And depending on which website I was on, some said it was very good for you, and others said it wasn't. And my mind was blown that even back 15 years ago. So a lot of us are now working into the space of generative IT, generative automation, AI, and we literally go to ChatGPT, Gemini, any of the services that are out there, and we forget that there's a part of our brains that we're not using if we're only doing prompting. So we have to go into the fact that, yes, prompting is good, but if you're looking at the detail, you will then see what you're missing. For instance, this morning, we're busy going through, kind of analyzing one of our clients' data and trying to just teach my team how to analyze the data and how to repurpose the data into actionable pieces of content later on. So, that type of content works better, et cetera, et cetera. And we realize that we see certain things on a report and the rest of the sentence is totally misplaced because it had the wrong client name matched to the client report that we were busy working on. So from that experience, it's another, are we checking each other out and helping each other? And that's about, kind of giving a damn. And, so what kind of practices, I'm curious, and this is not going to be a long podcast, but what are the different practices that you have in your business, in your working environment that dictates that you test the people to troubleshoot? I know that I even do it, when something is broken in the house. I will leave my children to figure it out first, because if I do it, I know how to do it. I know how to do it because I've had to do it, because I've learned how to do it. I've troubleshooted it myself before. But if I keep on telling them how to, what are they going to learn going forward? And hence the reason why I think, these hovering parents, the hovering boss, the micromanager, no, you will make 15 calls a day, you will this, you will that. And, when I left the corporate space, all of this had to be unlearned in my brain, because I know that how we work is totally different to how others have been taught how sales and marketing works. And, having my worked in this environment in the B2B space for such a long time is utilizing those skills and even helping my clients. So what we do, one of my favorite things is helping people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, but in such a way that it's not overly stimulating but it helps them to learn that actually I can grow. Actually, people enjoy my content. Actually, I have a say. And I think from a thinking and common sense perspective, I even look at, people from a common sense. So to give you an instance, we're busy doing some household renovations. We went to a hardware shop, not naming names at this point, and we needed a door and piece of wood cut and delivered. The rest of the stuff we could put in the car. It's a week later, somehow, somewhere on the card, they have that we owe them money, but we actually paid on the spot while we were there. So there's this whole confusion. And the common sense part of me says, I have a slip that says goods are paid for, but not yet issued. Okay, so I'm actually, you can hear the little piece of paper. It says sales order, goods not issued, but there's a payment slip. Okay, they will not deliver because somewhere on the card related back to this particular hardware store, there's some sort of an issue that we owe them 3,000 Rand for something that was credited in June last year. So for me, common sense would say, okay, guys, there's a problem in your system. That's common. Or there's some fraud happening. And, it's a business skill that to question everything, not just go, okay, so there's a problem. Well, let's just accept the status quo. Bad things happen when good people do nothing. And if each one of us just take someone that we know just is having trouble learning how to troubleshoot. So, those calls that you get maybe from your parents. Okay, so now I'm talking about the older generation, even the younger generation that's coming in right now. You get a call from your parent, your older parent, and it says, listen, I'm trying to access Netflix, but it keeps on and whatever. And so now you're having to talk them through the process. Instead of trying to say, okay, well, maybe what we should do is do some courses so that you guys, even if it's a 5-minute tutorial, or send them a YouTube video, this is what you do step by step. Sometimes what you'll end up doing, if they're close enough, is say, okay, Ma, after work, I'm going to come past and I'm going to quickly help you. There's research that shows that if you stop using your brain, it actually does deteriorate. And so what we want to, the point I want to get across is never stop being curious, because the curious part is where the common sense starts coming in. Be curious about your employees, as in who they are and how they function. Where do they come from? What type of household were they raised in? If they were raised by hovering parents and, that did everything for them, then it's going to, affect their outcomes and their outputs. The people that I work with and that are in my team didn't have hovering parents. And that's why we're able to get SH1T done, because we actually work so well together as a team. It's understanding that if you do have someone that has hovering parents, and we've had those, is how do we help them learn to be able to troubleshoot and how to use the brain and how to actually go, you know what, the paint is wet, I should not be touching the wall. Oh, wait, I touched the wall. Let me wash my hands so it doesn't stay blue. The little things. I'll give you an example. So as people get older, they start losing certain brain functionality. So experience, for those that know me, experience with someone with dementia and utilizing aluminium tape to, yes, now you guys are all cringing. Listen, very carefully, aluminium tape to connect electrical cords. Yes, it was shocking, and I was shocked, because that is what happened. So what we want to do is we have to keep our brain stimulated. Do those word puzzles, do the Sudoku, do, crossword puzzles. If you have elderly parents, I know that we work with, Ecclesia Parks, a retirement village. And, they often, have really insightful content, but also webinars where they've got specialists talking about. So they've got some past webinars that they've done about dementia and how to make sure that you're doing certain things. You have a routine. So you think about the fact that as a kid, they have a routine and they need to learn and they keep into that. I have employees that if they don't have a routine in place, they whole that they forget, like for a couple of weeks, their whole rhythm is upside down, inside out. They don't know what their name is because they forgot that something's been added onto their plate and they don't have a routine in place to add that piece into their plate. And then when they get back to it, and they go, oh, actually, and it's that's the common sense. Like, it's hot, don't touch it, and no, if you've got small children and you're listening, please don't say to your little girl or boy, your children, that's shoo-shoo. Use the full word, because at the end of the day, you're saying be careful, but I don't know what hot is or a hot plate is until I've actually touched something that's hot. So you need to let them experience it. So here's a fun example. Kids were, my son, I think, was still in pre-primary, so it's before grade R. My daughter was grade R, and we had this steep driveway in the place we were staying at that time. And those little black plastic bikes going down into the garage. So I'd take my car out the garage so that they could, go into the garage. So down the driveway into the garage. And then they'd call me out, and now I must watch them. And my son specifically, he would watch me watching him and not watch where he was going. I was very, very, very grateful that he was wearing a helmet, firstly, and secondly, that he was wearing jeans, because he wiped out so bad because he was watching me instead of watching where he was going. So after that, mommy's heart could not take it anymore and said, okay, my darlings, you should be looking where you're going. So I'm going to go back inside. If there's a problem, scream and I will come. But if I'm standing here, you're going to keep watching me and you're not going to be focused on where you're going. And I think that's just a reminder for all of us, as I can't believe we're in the second month of 2025 already. It feels like we should be in November. But as part of that is when we are looking at and focusing on a destination, we need to make sure that, yes, we've got a helmet. Yes, we've got the jeans so that if we do fall, we're not going to hurt ourselves. Yes, we've got a ramp to go down. And yes, we've got a landing spot, that's not going to be so bad and it's going to slow us down, when we need it. And that analogy is fantastic when it comes to understanding that, 2025 is not going to be, any different if we don't do things differently. If we're going to continue on the same path, if you're going to continue on whatever path you were continuing on, and you don't actually change up and help your children, help your staff, think with troubleshooting in mind. So think about the fact that when your internet's down, you'll phone the internet provider, and the first thing they will do is go, please reset your router. So when I phone, I've been working from home for 15 years. So I know the story. The first thing I'd say to the operator on the other side, okay, you're not dealing with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. This is what I've done already. I've done this, I've checked this wire, I've unplugged everything, I've replugged everything in and out and in and out and in and out. Okay, now this is a true story. So towards the end of last year, we could not figure out the internet. Every time it would the ONT. So for those who don't know what that is, that's where the fiber box, that's the fiber box. And then there's wires that go into the actual router, which then gives you the internet. And the ONT lights, the last one would go off as soon as it was trying to connect to the router. This was baffling. We even went out to go and get a new router. We thought that the router was a problem because we tried everything. We were on the call with them, nothing was working. Only to find that the power supply, the uninterruptible power supply that we bought for load shedding was faulty. And plus we'd actually connected it into the wrong port, power port. So you've got 6 volt, 12 volt, and something else. We had it in the wrong voltage. And that's why the router couldn't be powered properly. It's because we had it in the wrong hole. Now, from that lesson, now we're checking other things before we actually phone, and say, listen, there's something wrong with the internet. And so we learn. And I think allowing ourselves to learn and laugh at those moments, yes, it's frustrating in that moment, but you have to get through the frustration. Now, if you think about it, I'm frustrated because I'm having to nag my child. So back in my day, I have to nag my child to get up and change the channel for me. Well, yes, we all had those parents at some point, and it was a big knoppy on the TV. It wasn't, nothing was digital. It was all analog. So you had to push those buttons in on this big TV box thing. Someone was so frustrated that they decided, this isn't working for me. I want to use a remote. I don't want to use my child. And then my child starts, they make the noises. Now I know that I'm so used to things like, if there's not a full season and it says new episode every Monday or something like that, I actually don't watch that series until there's at least 1 or 2 seasons, because I will sit and watch over a weekend or whatever, and I want to watch in my time. I don't want to wait a whole week anymore. But back in my day, we would sit, and so we've also become part of that nature where everything is instant, and we're expecting people that come into our business to instantly know how we work, what are our processes, and just get it done. And I don't think we're being fair when it comes to that. Even back in our days where we'd have someone that would take us through, you would be meeting different people from the different departments and everything and things like that. And then you would start working. Only like in your second week did you even get your computer, because you first had to go for orientation and you had to do this and you had to do that. Nowadays, from day 2, you expected to make your first sale. And I know there's businesses like that, but there are businesses that understand that there is a sales process. And if there's a sales process put into place, they know that this is something that works. But if it's a sales process that doesn't work anymore, the common sense is that, okay, if we keep on doing and the sales are not, making any sense and we're not getting the results, we need to change up that strategy. What is everybody else doing that we're not doing? Okay, so I'm trying to sell shoes. They've got an online e-commerce store, plus they've got Take-A-Lot. Fantastic. Now suddenly they've got sales for their shoes. But it's not just about having an e-commerce. You're going to have to pay Google and. So there's a whole lot of things that goes into selling the shoe. But if you're doing B2B, it's a longer sales process, because you can easily just sell the nail because they need to hang a picture. But why do they need to hang the picture? Why does it have to be a nail? Does it have to be a hole? Could you maybe have a whole board? Maybe you know, that picture should be a mural instead of, you know, so it's understanding your clients better is asking the questions, understanding your, and I think we just, as a whole, I've got a very curious brain. So when someone asks me something, I can immediately kind of, and if I don't know the answer, yes, I do go to Google, but I trust the Google trusted sites. I don't go, Google, am I dying because I kicked my toe? So it might feel like your foot is going to fall off because you broke your pinky, toe on, the corner of the table or the couch. I'm sure we've all done that at some point in our lives where we felt like we'd broken the pinky anyway. That one that gets in the way all the time. But if you have a curious brain, you want to know why. So I would always try and understand. People would say, okay, so the air quality. Okay, so what about the air quality? What is it that's affecting the air quality? Okay, so it's pollen, it's where you're living, it's the industry, what else is affecting it? I recently found out that humidity has some sort of effect on your Wi-Fi connection. So because your Wi-Fi is going via airwaves, so wireless, and if there's things like walls and those kinds of things, it does hinder how much Wi-Fi you get. Just so that you guys, getting some quick tips, get an extender, get your IT guy out, or the IT guy down the road or whatever it is, to put an extender into your room if you want a TV in your room and you're busy streaming. Just get it done. Pay for someone to come and get it done. It makes your life a lot easier instead of getting irritated with the TV buffering every 5 seconds. But something that I was curious about, because now we've moved down to the South Coast, the humidity is generally quite high, especially during this time of the year. And I was looking at it and I was going, that my Wi-Fi is just really poor at the moment. But when I'm testing the speed and I'm connected and to the Ethernet cable, it's fine. But the humidity that day, I think, was sitting at something like 89%. But the sun was shining. So we've got hot humidity and yeah, so it actually does affect. And I did some research, obviously, to try and back that up, to figure that out. But at the end of the day, the common sense comes in from a curious brain. And I think we need to encourage our children, our employees, be curious, try and figure things out before you ask how to do things. As in, try and figure if you're figuring it out, that's how you can learn. How to unblock a drain, how to do those kinds of things. You troubleshooting things that cost you less if you understand, the use of a plunger. And again, this is a true story. The one drain, every time it was pouring, this drain would block. And I was like, okay, I need a plunger. Then we battled to find plungers. We looked at different stores and eventually I found a plunger. And for this particular, it was an outside drain with, the hole where all the water goes out. And so I used the plunger, and after about, yes, no, you can picture it, and you can start laughing and smiling, and that's good. I'm busy, plunging away and take it out and plunge away and take it out. After about the 5th time, all of a sudden I take it out and you just hear, and there goes the water, and I saved our, a bill of probably 1.5 for someone to come and do the same thing, just with a piece of cable to go through and unblock something. And it could be a dead mouse or a mole or I don't know, because down here on the coast there are those things, or frogs, I don't know. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get to is stop coddling, micromanaging, your team, your children, they have to leave the nest at some point. They have to do what they need to do in life. You know, I have a stepdaughter who was scared of doing this all by herself, but she's getting it done. She's still learning, but she's getting it done and she's doing it by herself. You know, my daughter's gone, come back, gone, come back, and now she's going again. My son has just turned 19, so he's still busy figuring what going means, but running his own little small, you know, grooming business down here on the coast. But at the end of the day, you know, they're figuring out things for themselves, and I've enabled giving them the tools. So, you know, along the way, and this is a big thing, and I think parents that have got, you know, teenagers and younger children, please don't think that having a psychologist is a bad thing, because sometimes they don't want to talk to parents about certain things, and you're not necessarily open and you don't understand. And I mean, I know when small kids, I'm like, oh, I can't. But teenagers and young adults, I can sit and have loads of conversations with and help and, you know, troubleshoot where the problems are and work with them and coach and things like that. So, you know, I've done that in my life. And through that, I've learned more about myself than I have also about other people. And I know that my value isn't lying in being just a mom or just a boss or whatever. It's about me adding value into conversations, even if it's just dropping a little thing where during this podcast, if I've made you smile, you know, then give a thumbs up, you know, give a laugh, give a, you know, because what you want to do is make people feel good in every single conversation you have. So what I try and do in most cases, unless I'm really, really irate with someone and, you know, they get to see the wrath, then they get to see the wrath. But leave something valuable with someone, but also encourage people to have a curious brain. So you tell them this is what you need to look for, but you don't do it for them. So, for instance, this morning I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we had a session on how to look at analytics so that we can do better content next time round, not just for the client's analytics, but for us to learn what's working, what's not working, so that we can do better next month. And understanding that part means you have to explain it and then let them learn, not do it for them. So I gave them one example of a client, then they must do it, and then they're going to showcase back to us. Well, the one when one of our staff is going to showcase back to us next week on what she did. So allow people to make mistakes. Allow room that you don't show your impatience. I know it's very easy. If you're a mom or boss or whatever, you show impatience. I mean, I've been there, done that. I've thrown shoes, and so we've all been there. But what we want to do is stop micromanaging your team. You're paying them for a reason to do things and to get things done. How they do it, if they're getting it done, the how is how they learn and how they work, and allow them to work if they're still getting the work done in the way that you need it to be done. If it's not getting done the right way and the work is not being done, then get involved. But if the how they get the work done is, but the work is still getting done, you shouldn't have to micromanage and say, I want you to make the 15 phone calls a day and I want you to log it. And so that is how we're managing you. I want to know that you have made your 300 phone calls at the end of the month. It's not about that. It's about, okay, so let's find different ways. Where are my customers sitting? Where is whoever? So we find different ways to do different things and allow your team room to learn and grow and find out what works for them so that they can get the job done. This is Noleen. I talk a lot. I share a lot. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think is also good tips. So I'm not a psychologist. I have done counseling courses, etc. And I'm very curious, and I understand things like that. But I'd love to hear from people that are in, that are psychologists, and parents that have Harvard over their children, and that they probably have a 35-year-old still sitting at home, playing games. On Sony PlayStation or something. I'm not sure. So drop your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, this is Noleen signing out.